Where that is. This is where I can see it. It's great to be here. It's great to see Phil Cohen. What a surprise. We used to toilet paper his house. He was the mayor in Brooklyn Center. Sorry, Phil, the truth is I want to thank everybody, thank Jennifer and for having me here, and this is unbelievable. To think that I'm coming back here, you know. I graduated from high school in 1969. And I know you're going to find this really hard to believe, but that's back when it snowed in March. And it would get down to 0. I know, it's, you know, so I love the snow. I'm an only child. My parents, we lived in over by Earl Brown School, and if you know where that was, and we were surrounded by Earl Brown Farm. I don't know if everybody remembers that, but when I went to college here, it was all you were talking about the houses across the street. There were no houses across the street when I went to college here. It was all potato fields, pretty much, and it was amazing. It's amazing to see. It's hardly the same place. It isn't the same place, but you know, I've been an amazingly blessed person. I was amazingly blessed by my parents. My dad and mom didn't have much. My dad was in World War II, and he was on the cleanup crew at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. First guys in after the bomb. He got tuberculosis. He came home and he was in the hospital for 6 years. And he never got out of bed for 4 years and 10.5 months. There was a period in there where he went into remission, and my mom and him went to a lake cabin and she got pregnant. And I don't know how that happened, but and one of the things I have to say one thing too. I've been playing out a lot around the country and stuff, and I always make this disclaimer that I'm not pissed off. I'm just from Minnesota. So, and I'm going to refer back to that. But anyway, so my parents had me, and my dad was in the hospital. And when I was born with bilateral club feet. My feet were kind of bent around like this and back underneath. And I wasn't supposed to live. I had a tumor. My mom, there she was going back and forth between 2 hospitals, me in one, me dying in one, and my dad dying in the other. She was afraid to tell my dad because he was so sick, and finally one day the doctor said, "You have to tell him. You have to tell him what's going on." And so she did, and he said, "I got to get out of here." And he got out of there. My dad died in 2008 at the age of 90. He worked out 3 days a week with weights. He was missing half a lung. He'd had a heart attack and a bypass, and he never got the memo. But one of the things that, when my dad got out of the hospital, my mom was working at the State Board of Health, and they told me this story because I can't remember it, but my dad wasn't supposed to work, but he bought a metal lathe. He was a machinist. He loved machining and engineering. He had a passion. So he bought they were in a flat, they bought a metal lathe. You know, you turn these cylindrical parts, and he put the lathe in the kitchen. And then he built this big speaker, and he would play Gilbert and Sullivan and sing to the top of his lungs. Well, I was in the high chair. I think he fed me now and then. But that made, I've come to know that made a huge impact on me. My dad, I've heard a great phrase. When you're children, you're victims, and when you're adults, you're volunteers. My dad was never a victim. I never heard him complain once about that. All he wanted to do is live. He never told me I couldn't do anything. So he got out of the hospital. They eventually bought a place on a little house for $11,000 on Fremont Avenue, and there was all potato fields around there too, and cornfields. And they said that they used to hear me. They'd put me to bed at night, and they'd hear this big clump, and I would have crawling out of my crib, and I'd landed on the floor, and I was sitting in the dark. The bang was my cast hitting the floor, and I was sitting in there playing with my toys, singing Gilbert and Sullivan at about 2 years old. Well, I go back through the pictures of me, and I always have this huge smile on my face. I was a happy, happy kid. Until I got to where I wanted to play Little League Baseball, and kids started calling me Clubfoot. Now, I used to think, how do they know? I didn't tell anybody. They didn't know. That's just what you call the gimp. So I didn't become a cripple until they told me I was a cripple. I think that happens to so many of us. We start out on the right track, and then we're given these messages of what we should be, what we are, how we don't measure up. One of the kids in the class today, or yesterday, had a great line that he'd heard. Confidence begins where comparison ends. Think about that. I learned that message, and you can see on the timeline of my pictures where my smile went away. I've spent a lifetime trying to get it back, and sometimes that's why I say that comment about, I'm not pissed off, I'm just from Minnesota. I say that as much for me, to set myself at ease, because I still will look at it. We develop these survival skills, I believe, when we're children, just to try to deal with the world. And I'm trying to shed that. So I went on, I got deeper and deeper in what I did. I mean, hiding myself, creating this illusion. I found alcohol. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And finally, it's interesting, they said 33. I got sober at 32. And at 33, I left my dad's business. I graduated from West State. I did get a music degree down there. I left my dad's business, and I moved to Nashville. It was really hard because I was the only one to take over. But he said, you know, you gotta go do this. You gotta go try this. 5 years later, he was down at the CMA Awards watching me get a CMA award for a song that I'd written about his parents. You can't make that stuff up. It's been so wonderful to be here at the school, you know. We've done a little songwriting seminar, and it's been so wonderful to be here at the school and watch the kids, watch the light come on. You know, this is not just about the money, about giving them money. The biggest desire we all have, the biggest fear, I think, first of all, the biggest fear we all have is to be known. And the biggest desire we have is to be known. We want to be heard. We want to be seen for who we are. But it's terrifying. I'm at a place in my life where, you know, I didn't shave. I'm not going to prop up any illusions. I'm a little bit disheveled, and heck, I got a job where I could wear t-shirts for my work. I write songs. It's been an amazing ride, and in North Hennepin, Dr. Don Dolan was the guy. I walked in here, I was going, every good boy does fine. I didn't know the notes on the line. I said, I want to take music theory. And he said, well, you probably should take Introduction to Music first. And so I took that, and Mrs. Lehner, who was the vocal teacher there, I said, I want to get in the choir, and she said, well, we got to do something about that lisp. And I went, what lisp? I didn't know I had a lisp. till she told me. And she helped me practice. I spent weeks walking around going S, 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 S. I remember going to a show in the theater. And it was an all-day music day they had here in this same theater. And one of the performers was Michael Johnson. Anybody know Michael Johnson? Bluer Than Blue, big. It changed my life. Michael is now a contemporary of mine. We do lots and lots of shows together. The biggest thing about it is that, you know, I didn't plan that. I did what I did because I love doing it. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're working at Home Depot, ask yourself what you want to do. That's what I said to the kids. What do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? You know, when you lay your head on the pillow at night, did you do what you wanted to do, or did you do what you thought your parents wanted you to do, or somebody else? I think the world would be a better place if we all really followed that. But it's not for the faint of heart. I will end up real quick, and then we're going to do a song. I'm sorry to run a little bit late, but one of the things that happened with my dad when he was in the hospitals, he said they used to try to bring in the entertainers in to sing for him. And nobody'd come because they were all afraid of getting sick. One person came, and it was Patti Page. She recently died. She got a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys. How many of you know who Patti Page over here? Well, she was still one of the biggest selling female artists. She did the Tennessee Waltz and How Much Is That Doggy in the Window. I produced a record about 10 years ago on a woman. When we got done, she called up and she said,
there's so many who try to fit us in a mold with little room to bake and not so much to grow. Then they act surprised when we fall behind the rest, when all we really taught us is how to take a test. It's okay, stand out in the pouring rain, don't be afraid. Who you are doesn't need to change in a world that lies comparing you to someone else. Just yourself. Why is there so many who walk through to the results when it don't go like they planned, and they tell you it's your fault? I know it isn't right, and I know it isn't fair to try to blame a peach tree